waters are fast-moving.
Unlike other big rallies,
Cockpit earlier at about 7 a.m. A group from the Coast Guard.
Welcome to #PHVote 2013. Today on Rappler, President Aquino says Janet Napoles does not meet the criteria to become a state witness. Media personalities hit a newspaper for reporting they received cash payments in a corruption scandal. And in tears, South Korea's president takes full responsibility for the mishandling of the ferry disaster. Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Rappler, your social news network. President Benigno Aquino says the woman in the center of the latest corruption scandal, Janet Napoles, is not fit to become a state witness. On Monday, Aquino says Napoles does not meet at least one requirement to be a state witness, that she must not be the most guilty, the guiltiest in the scam where lawmakers diverted public funds to her fake NGOs. The president says she is the common connection of all. How are we going to say she is not the most guilty if she is at the center of it all? The Justice Department is still vetting Napoles' statements after she volunteered information and offered a list of names who allegedly benefited from the scam. There are at least 3 lists circulating, all supposedly from her, but the lists don't match. Aquino says some people may be intentionally muddling the issue and changing names in the lists to, quote, bring the whole house down and make it appear that everyone is guilty. Justice Secretary Leila de Lima says she is not, quote, sleeping with the enemy after being criticized for entertaining the testimony of Janet Napoles. De Lima says it's unfair to accuse her of acting as Napoles' lawyer. She says it's her job to prosecute individuals involved in the biggest corruption scandal to hit the Philippines in recent years. Senator Chis Escudero earlier asked De Lima if she had a deal with Napoles. He was referring to the meeting between the two in April when Napoles told De Lima she was willing to tell all she knew about the scam. De Lima asks the public to allow her to do her job by listening to the testimony of the woman at the center of the corruption scandal. Senators asked the Justice Department to include the husband of Janet Napoles in its corruption investigation. Senator Coco Pimentel says Rehabilitation Secretary Ping Lacson identified retired Marine Major Jimmy Napoles as the source of his version of the list of officials Napoles said she dealt with. Senator Chis Escudero also backs calls to summon Jimmy Napoles when the Senate continues its probe on the scam. He adds, if the affidavit and history of the scam came from Jimmy Napoles, then he knows so much. Journalists criticize a report saying they received cash payments from the pork barrel scam. On Sunday, the Philippine Daily Inquirer reported the accounting entries of scam whistleblower Ben Hurluy that showed cash gifts to several prominent journalists and media personalities, including ABS-CBN's anchor Corina Sanchez, GMA7's Mike Enriquez, TV5's Luchi Cruz Valdez, and several others. Sanchez, Enriquez, and Cruz Valdez deny receiving payoffs from Napoles. The Inquirer says the information came from Luis' hard disk drive, given by his parents in April 2013. But Luis' former lawyer, Levito Baligod, said the files given by Luis' family did not contain those who allegedly benefited from the scam. How and from whom the Inquirer got its supposed list is unclear. The National Union of Journalists in the Philippines, the NUJP, says the controversy, though, should serve as a much-needed spark for the media to start cleaning its ranks. NUJP called on fellow members of the media to take the bull by the horns and come together to address the problem of corruption. It adds, it's time that the Philippine media recognize the problem and save ourselves and our people from ourselves. A Rappler exclusive. Former executives of the National Agribusiness Corporation, or NABCOR, copied the setup of the pork barrel scam. Affidavits of former employees show how then NABCOR President Alan Javellana and other officials transacted with favored NGOs for the supposed implementation of a 105 million peso technical studies fund. A special audit report also showed some 1.4 billion pesos of pork barrel was downloaded to NABCOR and siphoned to dozens of NGOs, including including those that were fronts for alleged pork barrel queen Janet Napoles. The NABCOR executives allegedly plundered a total of 300 million pesos, or about $15 million. This amount was taken from the Agriculture Department's special fund called the Ginintuang Masaganang Ani Fund. Thousands of Chinese nationals evacuate from Vietnam as tensions rise after territorial disputes between the two countries. More than 3,000 Chinese have already returned home over the weekend. On Sunday, China sent 5 ships to bring home nationals. 2 more ships arrived Monday. 2 Chinese nationals were killed and about 140 injured when angry mobs damaged hundreds of foreign-owned businesses in Vietnam last week. Relations between the communist neighbors turned sour after China sent an oil rig into the disputed South China Sea earlier this month. At least 31 children burned to death in a bus on fire in Fundacion, northern Colombia, Sunday. Fundacion's mayor says the children aged 1 to 8 were returning home after a religious service. Police initially blamed the fire on a mechanical problem, but the mayor says the bus driver was reportedly handling a container with gasoline. South Korean President Park Geun-hye takes full responsibility for the mishandling of last month's seawall ferry disaster. On April 16th, the seawall ferry sank off the southern coast with 476 people on board. At least 286 people died. Most were high school students. In tears, Park says, quote, "The ultimate responsibility for the poor response to this accident lies with me." She also dismantles the Coast Guard, criticizing its failure to immediately respond to the tragedy. The Coast Guard's responsibilities will be split between the police and a newly created Ministry of National Safety. The Seawall's captain and 3 crew members face charges for abandoning the ship and its passengers. New York-based Filipina transgender woman model Gina Rosero visits the Philippines. Rosero's pushing for her campaign, #GenderProud, which advocates transgender rights.
It's important for countries all over the world to acknowledge that, which would allow transgender and gender variant people, like intersex people, to change name and gender marker on your legal documents without being forced to go through surgeries. You know, having that right to be able to really reflect who you really are, it's one of the most basic principle and tenets of humanity, right?
Rosero says while being part of the LGBT community is celebrated in the Philippines, it's still not, in her words, politically recognized. She says GenderProud aims to change that.
So at the core, I think, and I believe at the core of GenderProud is I'm trying to just merge this global paradox, you know. I think it should be both culturally celebrated and politically recognized with the same rights just like any other human being.
Rosero also emphasizes the role of the LGBT community in helping boost the Philippine economy. She says institutions should be more open to the rights of transgenders because they comprise a considerable chunk of the working population.
World Economic being here, you know, if we're going to say that we are a country, if the Philippines is a country that wants to be this major player, especially in economic standards, if there's a big set of your population that's being marginalized, how could you flourish as a country? How could you need to allow your people to dream, for them to know that it's possible to achieve things?
Let's now look at Rappler's Wrap for today, a list of the 10 most important events around the world you shouldn't miss. At number 7, paleontologists identify the fossils of the largest dinosaur ever to roam the Earth. First discovered in 2011, the fossils are of a giant titanosaur, a long-necked, long-tailed sauropod that lived about 95 million years ago. The dinosaur weighs about 100 tons, the equivalent of more than 14 African elephants. At number 8, Filipino scientists discover a plant species that eats metal. The nickel-eating shrub Rhinorrhea nicolifera was first spotted in Zambales. Scientists say the plant is valuable because it can reduce metal contamination in soil. It can accumulate and tolerate metal elements at levels 100 times greater than those typically measured in plants that grow in similar environments. At number 9, Google says it could take several weeks to figure out how it could comply with a recent order from the European Court of Justice. The court earlier ruled individuals have the right to ask Google to delete personal data and, quote, be forgotten online when their data becomes outdated or inaccurate. Following the court ruling, Google received takedown requests, among them a convicted pedophile and a former politician. And at number 10, classic monster movie Godzilla claims the top spot of the North American box office on its opening weekend, raking in $93.2 million. A reincarnation of the 1954 classic Godzilla, stars Bryan Cranston and Juliette Binoche and continues the original movie's exploration of the threat of nuclear disasters. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 took in a total of $172 million since its release 3 weeks ago. It sits at number 3 in the box office after the film Neighbors, which earned $26 million. For the full top 10, visit Rappler.com's The Wrap. Every story on Rappler has a mood meter which gives you 8 emotions to choose from. You click how you feel and your vote comes down to the Mood Navigator, which is in the middle of the front page. That crowdsources the mood of the day. It also gives you the top 10 stories that have affected our readers and our viewers the most emotionally. If you take a look on the front page, you see the top 10 stories that have gotten the most number of votes in the last 24 hours. Interestingly enough, the first thing that'll pop up is you've got 2 entertainment stories that are this strange color, gray, which stands for don't care. YouTube sensation. Engaged, 57% say they don't care, but they clicked enough to click don't care. 14% say inspired. And story that started late on Sunday evening, Vice Ganda on the breakup. It was mutual. Again, interestingly, 12% say they're annoyed, but a larger 75% say they don't care. There's light gray making up the mood of the day. Today, most people don't care. Well, that is Rappler's Newscast for today, Monday, May 19th, 2014. Visit Rappler.com and watch our newscast Monday to Friday. Tell us how you feel on our mood meter and help us crowdsource the mood of the day. I'm Maria Ressa. As we say at Rappler, tomorrow begins today.